Was there more impressive or was there more unimpressive? And I think the question of better football conference today, Big 12 versus Big 10, I think it's a legitimate question. I think that the Big 12 was more impressive. It worries me a little bit how much Kansas sputtered early in that game. It worries me, and I know that this pisses people off, but am I the only one that looks at Avery Johnson and says, that was not impressive? That was not impressive. That you threw 14 to 21, you averaged 7 yards per pass completion. You threw an interception and you ran for 37 yards against UT Martin. And I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for, hey, Avery Johnson, he's amazing. Where are you today? Because that was not impressive in any way, shape, or form. And I don't want to hear that it was UT Martin. The truth is, it was your coming out party, or supposed to be. And maybe this was, because I think this is who this cat is. I don't think he certainly is not an elite passer of the football. And until he proves otherwise, and I ask again about K-State, because you're at Tulane, which when you talk about time, that's an early kickoff. That is noon Central, or excuse me, 11 Central, noon Eastern. Then you play Arizona, then you're at BYU, then it's Oak State, at Colorado, at West Virginia, Kansas.
Yeah, suddenly with, BYU's performance and what we've seen from Colorado, suddenly your schedule doesn't look so nice.
Avery Johnson is a cool story. Avery Johnson is a guy that everybody roots for. And I'm not telling you not to. But at this point, if your expectation is, oh, this guy's elite, he's going to be amazing, your expectations are out of line. Because he's never shown you that he is an elite passer of the football. And now you have two backs behind him. I thought Giddens had another phenomenal performance. He's your best running back. You have two backs behind him. They don't need him to run the football. They need him to throw the football and throw it effectively.
Facts.
And I don't know that you can I don't know that he is the guy that can carry a football team through that schedule throwing the football.
Yeah, and I don't want to hear, oh, well, Avery Johnson was our savior coming off the bench and Will Howard held him up and, yada, yada. Like, I don't want to hear that, dude. Like we're sitting here talking about a guy who played a nobody team in UT Martin and didn't look great. And again, I know we have a lot of these conversations to have today about a lot of different teams, but when it comes to Avery Johnson, I tend to agree. I mean, the kid can run, but I agree. 7.3 yards an attempt is the most damning stat coming out of that game for him. I mean, you can't be that low.
He's Alan Bowman. And again, I know that Oak State fans are. How many of you tweeted at me this weekend? How many of you were in the comments section? What do you have to say about Alan Bowman now? Under 8 yards of completion. You're 25 of 34. And you only threw for 267 yards. This offense is predicated on Ollie Gordon running the football well. And again, Oak State James, oh my God, we have the best wide receiver room in the history of college football. You didn't have a 100-yard receiver this weekend.
And by the way,
against South Dakota State.
What happened to Ollie Gordon's going to get 50 carries in the first game as punishment? What happened to,
Well, Jake, he's been running stairs, so he was a little scared.
I know. He's a little nervous.
Tired, rather, excuse me. Deshaun Stribling is probably your best wide receiver. And I'm just going to say again, offenses in the Big 12 have to prove they can compete, because I don't believe that outside of Utah, who I think I'm still going to say was the most impressive team I saw this weekend, in the Big 12.
Oh, but Monty, they didn't play anybody. Okay.
Utah, dominant defense. They have a balanced offense. Oak State's got real flaws. I think we absolutely saw the fact that you gave up 20 points, most of it in the second half. Their defense is going to have to show that Alan Bowman won't be counted on to carry this team.
Like, do you guys see, and I'm being serious here, do you see the difference in quality between what Utah showed us this past week with how they went about it, just how dominant it was, like not even really a football game at that point with Utah. Basically just Utah going out there and practicing essentially versus K-State, Oklahoma State, certainly Kansas, certainly a couple of like Texas Tech, right? Like you look at these teams over here that may have won their game, but struggled and were not nearly as dominant as they should have been versus the positive storylines of, hey, Utah handled business, Colorado found a way, BYU, like where are all the Jake Retzloff haters today? Where are you?
Well, and I again continue to say, and I will again continue to say, he was the only choice. And Gary Bohannon, I appreciate your story. You were never the starting quarterback of this team.
And what did they say on the broadcast? Because we've been talking about this, and they said it on the broadcast. Gary Bohannon said to Kalani Sitake that, hey, I'll do whatever you need me to do for this team. And Jake has won the job. I'm going to support him. I'm going to be that guy. So all the people saying, oh, well, Bohannon, and he can run, and he's this amazing transfer quarterback, it was never his job.
And Gary Bohannon, on the broadcast, they were talking about how, confirming what we said, you cannot give him a package of plays. Because if you give Gary Bohannon a package of play, what happens? The minute that Jake throws an interception or farts loudly, we got to put Bohannon in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's exactly the right mentality to have, because what I saw to Jake Retzloff is exactly what we expected to see. And I do think that BYU fans, the vocal minority of BYU fans, because it certainly was not all BYU fans, but the vocal minority of BYU fans that disrespected Jake Retzloff should be ashamed of themselves. And the idea that he wouldn't develop or be the same guy that he was last year tells me that BYU fans don't take the time to understand circumstances in football. And that vocal minority specifically, if you don't understand that a year ago, Jake Retzloff was not even physically ready to play football. Coming out of surgery, missing spring ball, missing summer workouts, never getting reps with the ones, not being familiar as he should be with the playbook. Then what happens? They throw him into game action, and you see a guy that was not 100% prepared to play football. He made mistakes. But what did we also see? Flashes of brilliance.
Yes.
Then the season ends, and he knows the offense at the end of the season, takes that education to a higher level, builds chemistry, goes through spring, goes through summer, goes through fall, and comes out and dominates. And did exactly what, thank you very much, I told you he would do. Throw the ball over the top and create better running lanes. And LJ Martin still, in my opinion, is the most important player on this offense. All of this without Lassiter on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, what we saw out of BYU and what we saw to Jake Retzloff is exactly what we needed to see. And it's why I think this team wins 7, potentially 8 games this year and takes a step forward.
Well, and I love the other thing with the offense is, I really enjoyed the play calling. I think, play calling's been a thing with BYU's offense that a lot of people have criticized. And I criticized it last year. I didn't like it. I thought it just wasn't great. And Aaron Roderick has come through and I feel like has improved. And I feel like they've made good decisions. The stuff you're talking about Bohannon, giving Bohannon plays or not giving him plays. That was a good decision not to give him plays. A good decision to get Jake moving around the field and get him in rhythm early in the game. And I just feel like, look, the BYU, I don't think BYU is good enough to contend for the conference, obviously.
No,
However,
certainly not.
I think that when we talk about like Oklahoma State as an example, but other teams as well, you're not going to go to Lavelle and have an easy time. You're not going to go there like Oklahoma State, middle of your schedule. You're going to Provo at night. You're losing that game, in my opinion.
I would agree.
Your defense showed me not you don't have a good enough defense to hold down that offense at BYU. And I think for the Big 12's purposes as a conference, BYU being a 7 or 8 win team, along with Colorado being who we know they are, along with what we saw at Arizona, you're getting depth in the Big 12 now. And that's why I would agree. I think that the Big 12 has a real case to say, hey, we are just as good, if not better, than the Big 10.
Well, and I think it is going to be really interesting to see the Utahs, the Kansas State, Oak States, like the teams that are supposed to be the best teams in this conference are going to get tested pretty regularly. Arizona State's better than we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt that the Kenny Dillingham effect, as I've called it on this show, his guys play hard for him. And you don't have enough depth or talent there. But then I bring that up to say at BYU, they actually have depth and talent. You have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the conference and maybe let alone the conference in the country. You're so deep at wide receiver, and look how many drops they had.
Yeah.
Look how many drops they had.
Yeah.
And you still threw a touchdown to your tight end. You got big plays over the top. JoJo Phillips, I thought, did a great job running routes over the top, which opened up the middle of the field. I think that Jake Retzloff, like you want to talk about a quarterback, that he averaged 11.6 yards, 20 of 30. And this is the Alan Bowman conversation. 20 of 30, 11.6 yards on average, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then you look at the fact he ran for eight times for 16 yards, including a critical first down. And you look at their balance between LJ Martin and Hinckley Rapati, who I think is an absolute battering ram in short yardage.
Yes.
I think this offense is deep enough now at the running back spot. LJ Martin's got to stay healthy. He is a dual threat running back. If Rapati and Martin stay healthy, this offense will score 30 points a game. There's just no question about it. They're going to be a handful. Are they big enough, and can they consistently get to the quarterback up front on defense? That's my biggest question. They've got great linebacker play, really good secondary play, in my opinion. It's simply going to be a question of, are they good enough to get after the quarterback, and are they big enough to stop the run against the Ollie Gordons of the world, against the better running teams in this conference? Taj Brooks, like, are you good enough to hold up against that physical style of offense that we've seen so much across this conference? The biggest question I have about Utah is Utah consistent enough on the offensive line to be the best team in this conference? Because I think there's some really good defensive lines in this league. I don't know. I don't think we know the answers to that question.
But I think if you're a BYU fan, I don't want to hear any more Retzloff slander. I don't want to hear that hey, this team hasn't improved. That hey, like I'm done with Kalani, should be fired. I think he coming into this season there was pressure. I think the fact that that's the conversation we're having now. Hey, like, are you big enough to withstand it for the whole season? Can't like we're not talking about, hey, are you going to win 4 games? We're talking about expecting you to be bowl eligible, and excelling would be 8 wins. And I think for that alone, I just don't think we should be saying Kalani's on the hot seat. I think what we should be saying is, hey, if they win, 8 games, what does next year look like for this team? Because that's why it was so important to put Jake into the starting role, because you still have next year with
continuity.
Him. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Midweek Coug says, go Cougs beat Tech. How about some independent vibes working in the old Pac-12?
Mm.
Yeah, the Mountain West refused to extend the scheduling agreement. And this is a damaging turn for the Pac-2. I don't know where you go. They're out of leverage now. That's a tough situation for Washington State and Oregon State. I don't know how many people saw it yesterday, but it came out that the Mountain West and the Pac-12 are not going to extend their scheduling alliance. So it's going to be you've got to join a conference. These two teams cannot be independent.
Yeah.
There is no joy in being independent at their level. Oak State James for $5. If Oak State beats BYU in Provo, will you guys play golf with me the next day? Probably not. If BYU wins, I will mow your yard. I don't have a yard to mow. I have turf. So 0 for 2. Although I did play great golf this weekend. I hit, for the first time in my life, I had a 400-yard drive yesterday. It was incredible. No, James, we won't. We won't. It's October. It's not going to be warm enough. So, let's see who else. We have a lot of comments today. I appreciate everybody commenting on the show. Make sure you hit the like button here on YouTube. It makes a difference. Wet blanket. South Dakota State hasn't had that many points scored on them since 2018. Who cares? Your quarterback is average. Very average. They talked about Tech earlier. You just missed it. Yeah, we did. Texas Tech is the shine is off of Joey McGuire. If you're just tuning in, as we react to week 1 of the college football season, the shine is off Joey McGuire. And if this is going to be how this team plays, they're going to miss a bowl. And who are you, Dave Aranda? Baylor actually looked competent. You've got to find a way to win games, and if you don't, I think you have to fire Joey McGuire after this year. I mean, I am the guy that says Texas Tech should always be a conference championship contender, because who else is going to do it? Mm-hmm. Right? I think the state of Texas is critical. It is inexcusable to me that Texas Tech just continues to flounder. And if Taj is out any amount of time, and he is listed, I think he's on the injury report as questionable with an arm injury. If Taj Brooks is out any amount of time for Tech, this is a completely different conversation, because that cat is really important to their prosperity. And it is not an excuse. And they've got a couple of guys out for the year. Their defense, don't get me started. Joey McGuire is not ready. And until he proves that he can win 10 games, you should be looking for another coach. And if you don't have a short list of the next guy, you're derelict in your duties, because that was embarrassing this weekend.
Yeah, and I think there are a couple programs who are in that very same position as Tech. I think, Florida with Billy Napier, I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't know what more you need to see or not see. You can't be a program that's in a spot where it's like, hey, you should be winning more and you're not, and you refuse to fire the guy. So you're just going to sit here and flounder. The same way it's good for the Big-12 when Tech is good is the same way it's good for college football when we get a good Florida Gator team. And, that loss, to lose the way you lost, I don't know what else you need to see.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what this conference looks like, because Utah's elite. Mm-hmm. I mean, from what we saw out of that offense, and all you can do is just keep proving it every week in and week out. But Utah was the most impressive team I saw this weekend. I think I'm a little concerned about Arizona, because I still don't see that they're an elite team. You had a historically good performance at wide receiver. I think Arizona State, there are a lot of performances this weekend. There is no question in my mind Utah's the best team in that league. And maybe BYU and Utah are the two most impressive performances I saw this weekend, because Jake Retzloff, I'm going to die on that hill. I'm going to die. That kid is an elite quarterback. He has been an elite quarterback. I do believe that when he was a 4-year-old, he was an elite quarterback at that level. It's probably a stretch.
I'm for real.
In high school, in JUCO, now at BYU. The deep ball to JoJo Phillips, the zip, the accuracy underneath. He's dynamic. He can play at all three levels. He is a mobile quarterback that can get you critical first downs. His decision-making, I want him to get rid of the football sooner. I want him to get, who are you, Shedeur Sanders? Get rid of the football sooner in certain situations, like when he was sitting out there in the flat and took a huge hit, get rid of the football. But there's not a whole lot not to like about what you saw from BYU and Utah this weekend.
Totally agree.
Oak State James. So Monty admits that having Stribling healthy does matter. Whoever said it doesn't matter? I said Alan Bowman is an average-ass quarterback who averaged 7-something yards per completion. You got lapped by Jake Retzloff with fewer completions because you throw the ball underneath. He's not. We've been here. We've done that. Let's see. Scott C. West Virginia played Penn State, not Lindenwood or Abilene Christian or South Utah Tech. Yeah. You got beat by an elite football team. And people are already asking for Neil Brown to be fired. I mean, Neil Brown's never going to get over, in my opinion. Giggity, the BY Jew is that dude. Yes, he is.
100%.
Yes, he is. Dude that abides. I said 2 months ago that Michigan's D would take a step back. Still be good to great. The O-line would take a step back. We got a kicker, though, so that'll be key in close games. I don't think that defense is half of what it was last year, nor should it be with the level of graduation and transfers that you had. I just think that Michigan's an average football team. Having seen a good chunk of that offense, you don't have a quarterback, at least not yet. And I don't know. Has Sharon Moore shown he can develop a quarterback into a explosive offense? No. You're going to need it this year in the Big-10 because, hell, even Miller Moss in USC, obviously with that receiver room and that quarterback, you look at Oregon, I would assume that was scary, but I would assume Oregon will be there. I would think Washington will be there. Like this is a good right now, not a great conference. I will maintain that the Big-12 is a better conference. Football-wise, right now on the field, I think the Big-12 is a better conference. We'll see. You got to earn that week in and week out. Because you look, and I have always espoused the definition of a good conference is not the top, it's the bottom. Look, anybody notice the SEC this weekend? Jackson Dart?
Dude.
Again, a guy that I will continue to die on the Jackson Dart Hill. That offense is lethal. Anybody see Ole Miss? Anybody see Lane Train's hot girlfriend? I did. Ole Miss put up 76 points. Doesn't matter. Now, I understand that it was Furman. But when you play Furman, you're supposed to win 76-0.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Jackson Dart, 22 of 27, 418 and 5 scores.
People hating on Ole Miss saying it was Furman, you don't get it.
76-0.
76-0.
I said 76.
Not 30, not
to
40,
nothing.
not 50, not 60, but 76.
And then you look at the rest of the offenses in this league. Tennessee, 69. 51 out of Oklahoma. Missouri looked really good. 51-0. Mississippi State, 56. 73 out of Auburn. 70 out of Arkansas. 63 out of Alabama.
I mean, look at the matchups that this conference is going to put out from an offensive perspective. I mean, like Alabama's a great example with Jalen Milroe, right? A guy that should be in the Heisman conversation, should be leading the way.
He's no Alan Bowman, but he'll do.
Right. So let me get this right. You've got Jalen Milroe. You've got Jackson Dart. You've got Quinn Ewers.
You've got Texas better be careful. No more Arch Manning. Arch Manning better not see the field anymore. Because you're asking for a quarterback controversy. Because anybody notice the Arch Manning show over the weekend for Texas?
Mm-hmm.
Come on now.
And by
Tell
the way,
me that's not a little concerning.
I wasn't. It is concerning. It is, and he's going to be very good. I also, when we're talking about SEC quarterbacks, I wasn't exactly blown away with Carson Beck against Clemson.
They
either.
came out flat.
Yeah.
They did not look excited to be playing that game. But, man, I look at, again, I'll just go to Jalen Milroe. Yeah, it's Western Kentucky and totally get it. 7-9, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm going to take the rest of the day off, coach. 7 of 9, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns.
And again, what's the theme here? 63-0.
Domination. And you look like in Justin Haynes, you might have found a running back.
So with all due respect to Oklahoma State fan or any other fan, Tech fan, like there are levels to this game, and giving up 20 to a nobody school versus giving up nothing to a nobody school is different. It's different.
Yeah. Texas A&M.
Yeah. They're not.
Is Texas A&M good?
I wouldn't say they're good. I would say that they're serviceable.
Yeah.
Serviceable.
Yeah. And all I'll say is this week, and we'll get in obviously the games. BYU, SMU. Anybody want to do a wellness check on Oak State James?
Stay hard
with his guy Preston Stone.
Yeah, dude. How's Buddy?
Not Buddy? Starting. That's how Buddy is.
Macaque.
Who starts against BYU for SMU? And I know that game's in Dallas County, boy.
The cock.
That game's in Dallas. But I just ask you, who is starting for SMU? Because Preston Stone looks like he's having a fight for his job. And I think that's that's Friday, 5 o'clock. You guys, I'm going to a huge Indian wedding all weekend. I am going to be that guy with my phone in my hand and my AirPods in.
Stay hard.
I'm going in full Indian traditional dress, and it's going to be very interesting to see how much my wife lets me get away with, because the wedding is for one of her friends. So it'll be interesting to see how much does she let me get away with?
Mm-hmm.
That is the only question.
Right.
Sal Carmona gives us 99 cents.
Hey,
appreciate
Sal.
that. Oak State James, a member for 15 months. Sorry about your boy Preston. Give him our best when you guys are cuddling. Remember, I'll be in Arizona for the next 4 months.
Don't sweat too much.
That's a nickel upstate. Wouldn't it be awesome if Oak State made it to the Fiesta Bowl quarters? Well, but again, do you guys really, and I'm being serious, Oak State fan, I'm being, do you really view this team as a college football playoff team? What you saw this past weekend made you think, oh man, we're going. Was it a USC type revelation for you? Because if you think they're going to the quarters, and I'm not saying you're predicting that, I understand I am a Mike Gundy critic. I totally get that. I'm with you. I understand it.
Sure.
I'm not hating on Mike Gundy. I am analyzing what I saw on the field. I saw a lackluster and at times lacking energy performance. And an offense that simply is not explosive. They're bludgeoning. They're not explosive. And you believe that this team, with what we saw from Jalen Daniels this weekend, even in not his best performance against Lindenwood, if I am correct, I believe they make sewing needles at Lindenwood. What we saw out of Cam Rising, Jake Retzloff, like Noah Fafita, whoever the anonymous guy at Arizona State is.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, you're telling me you believe that Oak State is elite even?
I think Oak State is who they are every year. You're an 8-9 win team. And you know what the real problem is? After week 1, I have no shame in saying I think the SEC's got at least 4 teams in the playoff. I think the Big-10's got 3. The ACC has 1, and I think the Big-12 has 1. That's what we're talking about. And
I would agree.
The Big-12 should have 2 or 3 in, but it's because of dudes like the Mullet, and it's because of Joey, and it's because of these different squads in in the Big 12 that you're only going to have one in, and that's going to be Utah. Like,
and listen, Sonny Dykes, Dave Aranda, good wins this weekend. Much needed wins this weekend. Keep going. Keep going. I mean, TCU, that was a good win for TCU, no doubt. Calford gives 5 Monty Show memberships. Way to go, Calford. Appreciate you. Sal Carmona, Fafita and McMillan, best QB wide receiver duo in the country.
I mean, it's pretty
one
good.
of.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
One of, there's no doubt. Tetaroa McMillan. God damn. And you guys know I have espoused Noah Fafita for a while on this show. I call them affectionately the Fighting Fafitas. But Tetaroa McMillan they're never, are they? It's probably strong to say they're never out of games. They're never out of scoring range. How about that?
Yeah, that's fair.
They're never out of scoring range. Mike Smith, T-Mac was a man amongst boys. My God. That is one of the great performances I think we have seen. That was he was open on every snap. I mean, every single snap. NE. Boy, Dan Lanning better hope those injured guards coming back this week make a difference. That was scary for a minute with Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. D-Rock Irish, hello. Texas A&M facts. Since 2010, the Aggies have a 39-2 record against non-Big 12 or SEC opponents at Kyle Field. Listen,
Okay.
and I'll just be bluntly honest. The Notre Dame defense is elite. That offense is going to be plotting and methodical. And Riley Leonard ain't that dude. Just not that guy. And Notre Dame is not a college football playoff team. They're simply not. Now, if you don't go to the college football playoff, Marcus Freeman should pack his own stuff.
I was going to say, I still think, I agree with you talent-wise, just like straight up, like, they're not college football playoff good, but I still think they get in. I still think they find a way in.
Yeah. Glass City Buck, hello, good to see you. Cam Rising is the best QB in the Western United States, and then it's Quinn Ewers. I think Cam Rising, and I think Cam just turned 43 years old during fall camp in his 12th year at Utah. I think that Cam Rising is phenomenal. And again, I think BYU fans got themselves all in a twist over what I said last week, which was that was exactly what we needed to see. That is why Cam Rising's elite. The guy had not played, I think the exact number, 602 days. And just diamond out, running for first downs, looking mobile as ever. The arm looks great. Throwing with zip, throwing with accuracy. Brant Keithy, running routes, catching passes, touchdowns, multiple touchdowns. The defense hat on hat. Like, now the offensive line is my biggest concern about that ball club, because I think you look at Mekhi Bernard. I think you look at, they have plenty of Glover, like they have plenty of running backs, really talented wide receivers, least of which is probably Money Parks, which says a lot because he's pretty damn good. Utah is going to be a problem. Lander Parton in that defense, a problem. And I think if they could get that offensive line together, I think already today, Utah is head and shoulders best team in this conference. Best team in this conference. But here's the problem. The bottom half of the conference is rising in the Big 12 football, as far as football goes.
Yes.
And you're going to lose some games you didn't think you were going to lose. Arizona State at that stupid credit union stadium that is Sun Devil Stadium on Pat Tillman Field, I think you are looking at Arizona State being a dog, dude. That is going to be Arizona State. And you look at, they host Mississippi State this week. Arizona State's a 6.5-point home favorite.
That's going to be a war.
And I look at their schedule. Look at Arizona State's schedule. They beat Wyoming, Mississippi State at home, at Texas State, at Texas Tech.
See, now right away, what are we going to say? They can win that ballgame.
Then it's Kansas, Utah, at Cincinnati, at Oak State, UCF, at K-State, BYU, at Arizona. That's I do not know that you have enough testosterone on the planet to be bowl eligible with that schedule.
Yeah, it's 5-win schedule, 4-win schedule.
Dude.
That's
but
tough.
I wouldn't want to be going to the desert, Oak State.
Yeah, but you know what ASU is this year? They're kind of what BYU was last year, where you're probably not good enough to be bowl eligible. You know, you're going to be right on the borderline there, but you're going to be in a lot of one-score games. You're going to be in a lot of grinder games.
Yep. And the fact that they have, I think they played, I could be wrong. I need to go back and get an exact count. I think they played 24 running backs. I believe 24 guys got a carry in the Wyoming game. I loved what I saw out of Scatabo and Brooks. Sam Levitt, I don't know. I don't know what Sam Levitt is. Is he a big-time quarterback?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Look at those yards per attempt, though.
Yeah. But that's my point. If you're Alan Bowman, you're not capable of averaging 10-plus yards per completion. And in this league, you're going to need to do that because this league has wide receivers, whether it is T-Mac at Arizona, a plethora of dudes at BYU, who I think has the best wide receiver room in the conference now. Travis Hunter is a huge problem. Horn's a huge problem. Like, you've got quarterbacks in this league that are going to average 12 to 15 yards. You can't be plotting a methodical 6 to 8 yards per completion. You don't win championships like that because you're going to be in games, and maybe this is Miller Moss at SC. You're going to be in games where you need a guy to be able to throw that go route down the sideline and at 37 to 40 yards. But then you're going to need him to throw that dump down for 7 yards. But I'm also going to need him to consistently hit the crossing route at 12 yards. Alan Bowman's not that guy. He is not that guy. Now, I can go up and down this conference. I can tell you Cam Rising's that guy. I can tell you Noah Fafita's that guy. Jake Retzloff certainly showed us he's that guy. I mean, is Baron Morton at Texas Tech that guy? Like, absolutely.
Yes.
Damn right he is.
Yes.
Right? Is Avery Johnson that guy? Probably not. Is Jalen Daniels that guy? He absolutely is. Right? Like, you look across this league, most guys are. And the teams that are not better have a locked-in running game and defense. Is Garrett Green that guy? I don't know. But I know for a fact that Chaboy is not that guy. Right. Alan Bowman's not that guy.
I also think, it's funny you bring up Garrett Green because I also think with this quarterback conversation, offensive philosophy is also not helping these guys. I mean, Oklahoma State.
I agree.
Like, think about would Bowman be a starting quarterback in this conference if Oklahoma State was trying to be a high-flying pass-first offense? I don't know about that, but because they're run first and they're kind of a grinder team, he fits in there. He works there. So I also think that's the other side of it where all the teams that are doing well, Utah, Colorado, BYU, Arizona, certainly, those are all teams that want to push the ball down the field.
Explosive offense.
Yes.
Because Colorado, what is Colorado? Why does Colorado have to have an explosive offense? Because they're going to give up a lot of points. They're going to give up a lot of points. But here's the problem with like in Oak State. You're not going to give up a lot of points. How many games this year will Oak State give up 30 points? In this league, probably only half the time. Because their defense is, I think Oak State's defense is better than we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the offense is not as good as we give them credit for. So this is an explosive league now. Let's see. Whoa. Comment dump. Big Blue Horses for $2. Peace out, rock on, don't hide, and go Gators, dude.
Bro, I feel bad for you, man.
Billy Napier needs fired. That was embarrassing.
Get his ass out of there, dude.
How good is Cam Warren? God damn. Do you want to talk about a guy with drip? Cam Ward just kind of trotting for first downs. Good Lord. Mike Smith gifts one Monty Show membership. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Always appreciate you guys being around. D-Rock says plenty of season indeed. Boyd Lake, is Cam Rising the best QB in the West at the end of this year? Probably not. Shedeur Sanders.
Agreed.
I want to know how many of these guys that we saw this weekend, how many of them are really good? I think again, but I've seen a ton of him. Jake Retzloff is really good. Shedeur Sanders is really good. Noah Fafita is really good. Is Miller Moss at SC really good? Is Dylan Gabriel at Oregon really good? I think yes. To beat LSU like that, to make that throw, to have LSU's defense worried about your passing offense enough that you were able to walk into the end zone to win the game, I'm going to give Miller Moss the nod. I'm going to say that it is going to be interesting when we talk about the elite quarterbacks to see who actually shakes out, who actually can play. Because again, like in all seriousness, Preston Stone, it's shocking how bad he's been, how unable to take that team he's been.
Right.
I'm surprised by that. Right? Like and if I look across this country, we've seen already some really bad quarterback play. Klubnik at Clemson, DJU at Florida State has been horrendous. But Cam Ward, one of the most impressive quarterbacks I saw.
Yeah, I feel like people didn't know. Like, I feel like people knew the name, but they didn't really know what he's capable of, and that was kind of a coming out party for him.
I think it is very interesting to see how these guys progress through September into October when we're not playing your mom's sewing circle anymore.
Yeah, the way I look at quarterbacks coming out of this week is like Jake, like I would put Jake Retzloff, Shador, Cam I think
Quinn Ewers,
certainly. Those guys are all quarterbacks who you call the play, but you're calling the play because you trust that they're going to make a good decision and they are going to complete.
There's a high level of belief.
Yes. But like with Miller Moss, he played well, but I disagree with that last play of the game. The last play of the game was Lincoln Riley being extremely savvy as a play caller. And I would also point out that he did that multiple times in the game. They ran for first downs on, I believe it was a 3rd and 8. He converted a first down by running it in an obvious passing situation. So again, it's not to take anything away from Miller Moss, but I don't put him in that group of guys that I was just mentioning. I think that he's going to have to show
certainly
that he can,
he's not with Shador, or I put Jake Retzloff as one of the elite throwers in this league now. Baron Morton's an elite thrower in this league. Like there are a lot of good quarterbacks. How many truly elite? Like Shador Sanders might be the only truly elite guy in this league, but man, there's a lot of good quarterbacks west of Texas. Like there's a lot of good quarterbacks. I mean, and I think, again, I will just say, I think Texas is, I'd be shocked if they lost at Michigan, it would be stunning. I think they win by 17, 20 points.
Yeah.
I think they are. And granted, Michigan's in transition. They're pretty average on paper. I think we saw a pretty average performance. They don't have a quarterback. You would expect Texas to go in there and just deconstruct that place.
Yes.
And you would think that they will. Quinn Ewers is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think, and again, I think Shador Sanders is on a different level than Quinn Ewers. I think he's that much better.
Well, the athleticism is what really separates guys. And the thing is, like with Cam Rising beats you mentally. He knows where you're going to be. He knows where to put the football, and he knows where his guy's going to be, right? So, like, that's how he beats you. Shador Sanders, I'm telling you, the athleticism that guys like Shador have.
Noah
Fafita, again, Cam Ward, like, they're the quarterbacks that have the mentals, but then also have the athleticism and the ability. That's how you get to the top, the tippy top. But when I look at Jake Retzloff, he may not be as athletic as Shador is, but man, he's athletic enough to get done what you need him to get done.
Hoover at TCU.
Josh Hoover, right? Another guy.
Threw the ball all over Stanford.
Remember the questions last year about Josh Hoover? He's largely answered those questions now.
I think that was a good win. But I would also point out, I think Stanford's a little better than people give him credit for. But you look at Josh Hoover, 28 of 42, 353, 2 scores. I mean, he threw the ball. To throw the ball 42 times that's a lot for that cat. And I'm surprised. The other thing that's surprising is TCU only ran the ball for 100 yards. That was a little surprising, but is what it is. I think there's a lot of, but then again, I look in the Big-10. How many really good quarterbacks are in the Big Ten? I mean, obviously, I think, man, is there Drew Aller's not elite. I mean, Miller Moss. I mean, you got to believe that Miller Moss is one of the elite guys in that league right now. I mean, is Will Rogers a guy where you're not Will Rogers at Washington? You don't know yet.
When we say elite in the Big Ten, are we just talking about best quarterbacks in the Big Ten?
One of the best quarterbacks in the country. Well, I think there's only one, and it's Will Howard at Ohio State.
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to say too. I just feel like I'm hating on the dude. I just don't think we can say that about Miller yet. I think he's still got some proving to do.
No, because he was too shaky in the first half.
Yeah.
Not Aller. I mean, I didn't.
Dylan Gabriel didn't blow us away.
What did you think of Raiola? Because I thought Dylan Raiola was good, not great. And again, I understand it's early season times and whatnot, but 19 of 27, 238, 2 scores. I mean, it was UTEP, but he threw the ball 27 times.
Right.
I mean, that impressive. I haven't seen enough of there's not a body of work there yet. So that's why I say, there's far better quarterback play in the Big 12 than the Big 10. I think the defenses in the Big 10 are better than the defenses in the Big 12. I think it is close, but I think the bottom of the Big 12 is better because I think Minnesota's Garbo. Wisconsin's going to be average. I don't know. I love Jed Fish. I think we've talked about this on the show, you guys. I am a Jed Fish believer. I think he is Washington, but I don't know what Washington is now. I know that USC has a really good defense.
Yes.
D'Anton Lynn is a really big upgrade for them.
Well, and take the Miller Moss stuff out of it. Lincoln Riley is an X factor as a play caller, and he puts Miller Moss in really strong positions. And when you have D'Anton Lynn doing what he does on defense and then combining that with Lincoln Riley, that's why they're a good team.
And then I go to UCLA.
Who, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of UCLA. They play football in LA. I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Ethan Garbers, how very Alan Bowman of you. 19 of 38, 272, 7.2 yards.
Now, quality
Now,
opponent.
that game was at Hawaii.
Yeah.
I'm not going to – that's a long trip, bro. At Hawaii is a long trip.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. We need – and I think Mike Smith is the one that said it. We need a few weeks to see how this plays out. Shedeur Sanders' last name could be Hairball, and he would still be one of the top quarterbacks in football. Oh, absolutely.
And you know what's so crazy,
No
too,
doubt.
is when we're sitting here comparing the Big 12 and the Big 10, is it not just obvious that the SEC is better than both of them in both categories? That's what's so insane.
That's what is so insane.
Like,
The
I mean,
SEC is
you're
just better.
you're just better.
You've got so much quarterback play. The SEC is the best football conference in the country. It's not, there's nothing, stop. You don't have to like it, but you better learn to love it because they're going to put 4 teams in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
That is.
Is this the year for Ole Miss?
It better be because he's got an offense. Tanner Plummer, one good performance against an FCS team in Retzlaff is the second coming of Steve Young. It's not one good performance against Southern Illinois. I've been saying this for a year. Remember how much heat I got over not liking last year's starting quarterback.
And by the way, you're a Bohannon guy. What do you mean?
Yeah. You're a Bohannon guy.
Yeah.
And again, the vocal minority at BYU that will never accept Jake Retzlaff, I don't know why. Jake Retzlaff put out an elite performance this past weekend. Elite. The guy, if Jake Retzlaff was at Ohio State, USC, any of the major programs in this country, he'd be a top 5 draft pick in the NFL.
Yeah, I'd rather have Retzlaff than Miller Moss. 100%. 100%. More athletic, more dynamic.
The deep ball, the mechanics, the mentality, the understanding, the execution, the leadership, the maturity, the night and day difference from last year to this year. And you understand it because of the surgery last year, no spring or summer, was never going to be the starting quarterback, was not with the ones, was not on the play sheet. Like, you look at what Jake Retzloff put on tape. There's not a program in this conference that he wouldn't start at Tech because I think Baron Morton is a great quarterback. Find me another program in this conference. Okay, Utah. He wouldn't start over Cam Rising. Nobody will. God wouldn't. Colorado, Arizona. Totally agree. Then we're into a conversation about where would Jake Retzloff start instead of.
He'd start at K-State. He'd have a strong case at Kansas because of the injury concerns. He would start over Alan Bowman without a doubt.
I think he would start at Oak State. I think he would start at West Virginia, Houston, UCF, TCU. I mean, he's better than what you have with Hoover, but I don't know. He'd start at Oak State. He'd start at K-State. I think he'd probably start at Kansas. He'd start at Iowa State. He'd start at Cincinnati. He'd start at Baylor. He'd start at Arizona State. And again, the vocal minority of BYU fans keep hating on the guy.
Why can't you say, hey, yeah, this is week 1 in college football. Everyone's playing your mom's technical institute. And Retzloff came out and did exactly what he needed to do.
He didn't play well. Steve Young, I'm glad he played well. He didn't play well. He dominated Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
He didn't play well. Let's get that right. Because today, we're going to stand on Retzloff business because nobody else will. And we have for a year. We're going to stand on Retzloff business because nobody else will say that this is the guy who should have been named the starter right out of spring football. Without a doubt. Okay, you don't want to do that? Great. All summer long, where was he? With his wide receivers or with John Beck? All fall camp, he had one bad week. Dominated the last 2 weeks of camp. Still, you all wanted Gary Bohannon. And now, Jake Retzloff shows up against Southern Illinois as the guy, and I told you he was, I told you he would be, and he dominated. He didn't play well. He dominated. And he's earned it. And you need to put respect on his name because he's earned it. You need to say that's our best quarterback because he's earned it. And I'm tired of the vocal minority at BYU that never likes the starting quarterback, that always is in love with the backup and Gary Bohannon. And I don't care about who the backup is because the guy that's number 1 is Jake Retzloff and he's elite. And I'm tired of hearing about need to see what he does against better competition. He threw one bad pass last year against Oklahoma, and everybody tried to crucify him for it. But what did he do? What did he do immediately following that bad pass? Nobody wants to talk about that. He led the team right down the field and scored a touchdown. Nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about the pick 6 at the goal line. Bad pass, terrible decision. Totally get it. He led them right back down the field. Did he hang his head and cry? He didn't. He led them right back down the field. And the vocal minority at BYU that only wants the backup quarterback, you're not helping. You're not supporting your club. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. 9 out of 10 BYU fans see what Jake Retzloff is as an elite quarterback, an elite passer with an elite group of wide receivers and a really solid tight end. We'll see what the offensive line is. But there's no doubt he's your best quarterback. Gary Bohannon said it himself.
Yeah.
He outright won the job. It's amazing to me. It is amazing to me. And Lassiter didn't even play.
Yeah, that's the wild part, dude. One of your best playmakers from last year didn't even play.
I'm telling you that when you look at the Dakotas in Southern Illinois, those are really good teams. And you look at Jake Retzloff, did not stop saying he played well. He dominated. He didn't play well. He dominated. And we need to stop with the, well, let's see what he does. You know, he's got to beat Georgia. No, he doesn't. He's got to beat the next team in front of him. He's got to beat Alabama, Monty. No, he doesn't. He's got to beat Utah. No, he doesn't. He's got to beat the next team right in front of him. And he will do that. And let's put it this way. Jake Retzloff is not why you're going to lose if you lose at SMU. It is that simple. I am
tired, bro.
So tired.
Seriously.
Of hearing about the backup quarterback or Gary Bohannon. It's not Gary Bohannon's fault. But Jake Retzloff clearly beat him out. I've heard that from BYU players and people at BYU. I've been telling you this for weeks. Nope, Gary Bohannon's our guy. Okay. I'm riding with Jake Retzloff because he's clearly the best quarterback. Clearly the best quarterback. All right. This show is flying by right now. Fat old Mormon and dying.
Oh, okay. See, this is a fitting comment.
Tanner calling for the backup again? Yeah, he is. He is. Glass City Buck. Really? I can't count that high. Okay. UW fan Jim. I was pleasantly surprised by the Dogs, but the run D was an issue. And that's troubling playing in the Big Ten. It really is.
Well, that's a great point.
Because the Ohio State, even Michigan, Penn State, they're all physical up front. They're all thick. I mean, the Northeast corridor where all those teams recruit their offensive linemen, Notre Dame, they're all big boys.
Yeah, they be eating that steak and potatoes.
Grass-fed. Let's see. Go Balance. In my opinion, the group of five needs their own playoff and national champion, which they will have. No doubt. Oak State James. I just posted Oak State's week 1 on Instagram. Week 1 stats on Instagram. All 3 receivers had at least 4 touches. It's about spreading the ball around.
For 7.8 yards an attempt there, Slick.
Hey, man, if this is the offense you want to ride with it. Because the results don't lie. You win or you lose.
Yeah, and you won 44-20.
That's right.
Great job.
You won. Hit the like button. Yes. Hit the like button. Let's see. Mike's comment. Back to Mike Smith. Michigan is not better than the directional Michigan teams in the MAC. I don't know, but Michigan at some point. Elvis Gerbach's not walking through that door. You got to find a quarterback. And it's remarkable that, again, we're going to talk about a Michigan offense that can't take the ball over the top. We're going to talk about a Michigan offense that is boring to watch. Who are you, Iowa? We're going to talk about a Michigan offense that is not good enough to compete with the top 5 offenses in the Big Ten.
But isn't that who Michigan's been outside of the last 2 seasons? Like, that's who Michigan's been.
The only difference now is you don't have an elite defense.
And you don't have sign stealer guy.
That guy, well, don't
sign stealer guy.
You know. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. It's as simple as that. And if you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to win at a high level. K. Nurin. Maybe BYU will go 11-1 now with Jay.
Undefeated, bro.
My biggest questions about BYU are, can you hold up front defensively? I think you have the horses on the offensive line. You've got to find continuity. That takes time. I don't know that you can consistently pressure the quarterback and stop the run. I just don't think you're big enough or talented enough on the defensive line. Maybe I'm wrong. I like what I saw out of the secondary. I like the linebacker play. Their defense is much faster. By the way, did you guys see Jay Hill, the defensive coordinator at BYU? Jay Hill wasn't feeling good late last week. Goes home and he's like, I just don't feel good. Not feeling good. And run down. Got it's a weird feeling in my chest. I'm going to go take a nap. His wife's like, no, you're not. We're going to the hospital. Nah, I'm fine. I'm a football guy. Just going to go take. No, you're not. We're going to the hospital. Okay. Finally, he agrees to go to the hospital. A total blockage of one of his arteries. Like you're at that point, you are minutes away from meeting your maker, whoever that is. You are that close. If he takes a nap, there's a good chance he doesn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife, phenomenal job. Phenomenal job.
Okay, now we need to scroll up a little bit because I want to read Tanner's reply because,
Tanner Plummer, dang, you guys are overly sensitive about Jake. No, I'm not. Never was calling. Oh, my God.
Dude.
Oh, my God.
Dude, you need to be accountable. You need to be accountable. You are absolutely calling for Bohannon.
Glad Jake played well. Need to see it against better teams. Also, did you forget he had 6 turnovers in 4 games last year when he didn't know the offense, was never the number one guy. Never. Didn't practice in spring. He had surgery. He had an appendix out. I believe he had appendicitis. It burst. Surgery, missed all of spring and all of summer. Went into camp not knowing the offense, never took a rep with the ones until his first rep in a game. And the thing that's amazing to me is this last sentence. Did you forget 6 turnovers in 4 games? So he's just the same quarterback that he was a year ago today. Quarterbacks don't grow. They don't get better. They don't spend the entire spring dominating, not turning the ball over one time in spring ball. I don't know. Call me crazy. Maybe it's because he has a full command of the playbook. I don't know anything about football, though. Spends time with his wide receivers. Spends time with John Beck, one of the elite throwing coaches in the country, with Tom House.
By the way, does BYU put quarterbacks in the league?
And again, I'm asking for this ridiculousness. Why can we not make the assumption he's going to improve year over year? What is this belief that he's just the same guy? Oh, he threw 6 turnovers in 4 games. No spring ball, no summer, never ran with the ones, didn't know the playbook as well as a starter would. But he's just going to be the same guy. I don't understand this. I don't get it. I don't get it. And yes, you were absolutely calling for Gary Bohannon. I believe you said you would start Gary Bohannon.
Yeah.
It's outrageous to me. Go Balance. This weekend, Miami plays the best team in Tallahassee, Florida. Wow. Boyd Lake, spreading the ball using 5-yard out routes isn't going to win you much. Got to go down the field. You have to have explosiveness in your offense. That's today's game. That's today's game. Frankly, it's why Will Howard is the quarterback at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't have that. They needed Notre Dame to make multiple mistakes to beat them at Notre Dame Stadium last year. Well, you went out and completely changed it. It's why I am so surprised that you never, at Michigan, why do you not have a quarterback? I don't know.
How do you not have more in your pipeline if you're Michigan?
How do you, again, if you are Florida State, if you're Clemson, did you just assume that Cam Ward was not good enough? Because Cam Ward looks like the best quarterback in that conference.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there was a better performance than Cam Ward this weekend, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Because I don't understand how, with all due respect to the Canes, how does he end up in Miami instead of Florida State or Clemson? You went and got DJ Uyunglele, out of the portal. Cam Ward was right next door in Spokane, and you didn't go get him.
Yeah, well, and you know why he's not at Clemson? Because
they don't believe in it.
Yeah, Dabo's not going to go out in the portal and be aggressive and upgrade the roster, and that's just the trouble. I think that what have we talked about with Mario Cristobal? That he had to have a year this year. That it was do or die. That hey, if you're not going to be good this year, you're not going to be in a great place. You're going the wrong direction. And so what did he do? He went out in the portal, got a bunch of talent, and now they're better. And again, it's just such a clear night and day difference between the teams who are good. They add through the portal, they add the recruiting, and the teams that don't struggle. So,
and again, you look at the best teams in the country last year. And Michigan's different because of the attrition, the Harbaugh situation, the cheating scandal, the uncertainty around certain aspects, all the guys they put in the NFL and a bunch of dudes in the portal. Michigan should have been able to do what Ohio State did, but they didn't. And I think a lot of it was, from what I understand, they competed for guys. Guys chose to go other places, and you understand it. But again, I use the mold for winning games in college football is what happens in the SEC. And I look at Carson Beck having a mid performance, they still put up points.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, like across that league, big offensive performances.
But again, who's running those programs? Lane Kiffin is prolific in the portal, bro.
Yes, he is.
Like, you know,
and you look at Dion.
Dion.
Oh, Dion can't recruit.
Yeah, he's just flipped over 70% of his roster.
Just explosiveness all over the field. Their offensive line is much better. Can they stop the run? I don't know. Their offensive line is much better. Their wide receivers are still elite. The guy can recruit. It's just recruiting isn't, you know, Johnny, the high school kid anymore. Oh, wait, he got Seton at tackle, the best tackle in high school football.
And Dion doesn't have the built-in advantage that Kalen DeBoer has at Alabama, where you already had a bunch of winning seasons. This dude is taking a dumpster fire and building it into something. And
yeah.
I would also say that about Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley had to take a USC team that was trash and has, you know, had to turn it around. It takes time.
But why were they so good year one? Well, they had the best quarterback in the country. Why did they struggle in year two? Because teams schemed for the best quarterback in the country and they didn't have a defense. Now he's got a serviceable quarterback in Miller Moss and a much better defense. And what do you know? They beat LSU in Las Vegas in a Vegas home game.
Huge win for the Pac-12. I mean, the Big 10.
A fat old Mormon and dying. The results of every BYU football season is written on golden plates. If only we could find them, we could make millions. Wow. Monty, slam the table harder. You would be like Brian Kelly.
Come on.
Brian. BYU puts quarterbacks on practice squads. Jaron Hall to the Seahawks. Does that count in the league? Well, it doesn't matter if your quarterback succeeds in the NFL. Who are you, USC? What matters is you put guys at the top of the draft. And with Jaron Hall and Zach Wilson, Tanner Mangum. Oh, wait, Tanner Mangum. Still has that play against Nebraska, though.
Look at how good Zach Wilson was for the Broncos in the preseason. The improvement, the absolute development. Now, he's not starting for them, and you understand it with Bo Nix, but he will play somewhere. He will find a home somewhere.
And I think Jaron's got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
But you're putting guys in the NFL. I mean, that,
I'm just saying,
and that's always been the knock from Utah fan is they don't put guys in the NFL.
BYU
they put guys
is
in the
a quarterback
NFL.
factory, bro. They put guys out all the time.
They do.
Like,
Monty podcast conundrum, Jake versus Cam, who's the better GOAT? I mean, time will tell. Boyd Lake, Keaton Slovis signed with the Texans. Speaking of Slovis, what a bum. He did. If Jake doesn't have, was it his appendix or tonsillitis? I can't remember what it was. But if he doesn't have that,
Keaton Slovis, what a good dude. Just
awesome human being. Just not an elite quarterback.
Yeah.
Not an elite quarterback. That's all. Miami paid more money. Simple as that. Yeah. And I think that.
But we need to stop vilifying programs for paying money, dude. That's the situation.
I was just going to say the same thing. Why is that a bad? You say that like it's a knock. It's not a knock. It's the reality of the world.
Yeah.
It's the world we live in. And now, if deregulation of college football really does happen and no limits are in place, it's going to be an arms race. It's going to be an arms race.
What else would you want as a college football fan?
James, stadium guy who you must have been moist with the wide angle shots of Doak Campbell Stadium at Florida State with that big construction going on.
Yeah. Do you want to put an upper deck on that stadium too? Or
it's Tuesday. We should end the show with who has the best tacos. I got to go mow my lawn.